What's up everyone, it's ENDYMION, and today we got a doozy on our hands as Helldivers 2 has been found in the crossfire of controversy. But this time, it's really troubling to say the least. Beyond this, I also want to look into another community manager that is allegedly pushing the narrative that they're being sent horrific racist emails. Yet people are realizing there might be more going on than we think, and much more, so let's get into it. Helldivers 2, as you know, is a very fun multiplayer game where you shoot bugs and robots with your friends. The game has been targeted by players pushing Arrowhead Game Studios to implement things like rainbow pride capes and inject real-world symbolisms into the game's world. Of course, Arrowhead smartfully has taken the opposite stance towards any of this and has become the unique example of a runaway success story within the current gaming landscape. Many video games, especially those of Western make, are drenched in diversity, equity, and inclusion symbolism, and they go out of their way to inject as much real-world symbolism as possible in order to appease every single community imaginable, which is just a surefire way to ensure that you'll have to now bend the knee constantly forever for as long as you make video games once you do this. Helldivers 2 was seen as a bastion of non-woke gaming, and sadly it seems there might be some cracks in the armor, so to speak. As just a day ago or so, there has been this huge discussion exploding over community managers of video games. To begin, let's look at this article from thatparkplace.com titled, Helldivers 2 Community Manager Declares Game is Pretty Woke and Reveals Game was banning individuals she deemed bigots, transphobes, homophobes, racists. This started when someone tweeted a screenshot of a picture showing another Steam curator tool similar to Cabrutus Rambo's Sweet Baby Ink Detected, which is called Is It Woke and lists games like Among Us and Helldivers 2 on the list. For anyone who's actually played Helldivers 2, the game is about as non-woke as it gets, at least on the surface anyway. There is no real-world symbolism or anything like that, it's just a game where you shoot stuff and you level up. Of course, in response to this tweet, the community manager of Helldivers 2 responded to it with, laughing my ass off, uh-oh indeed fellas. Helldivers community manager, or CM for short, is Catherine Baskin. No, she's not related to that Baskin, but firstly, do not harass this individual whatsoever. Let's simply look into what's going on and decipher what this tells us about everything. Helldivers CM then replies with, plus Helldivers is pretty woke dog, game was made by a lot of LGBT and brown people and black people and women, and it's a big satire of jingoism. It amuses me they don't know that Super Earth is bad, it also explains a lot about the world at present. This single tweet from Helldivers CM has sent a schism throughout the community in a way that can only be described as financial death. Since Helldivers was championed as a game being a bastion for players sick of the real-world politics infesting most corners of video games today. What the CM said there alone is a tweet that will likely cost Arrowhead thousands of dollars in damages. And if they're smart, they'll rectify this before it gets worse. I'm not saying straight up fire her, although I'm sure many would love that. But I think they need to issue a statement showing exactly where they stand when it comes to real-world politics and that of their video games. Of course, it's impossible for every single person at Arrowhead to have the same stance on every issue. I'm sure there are liberal-minded people on the team as there are conservative ones, although let's be real, the conservative ones might have to hide their political ideology. Because that's how nonsensical the entire industry is, and believe me, based on my DMs, I know there's plenty of conservatives who have to keep silent when it comes to making video games. Which is pathetic as well, not of the people with those views by the way, but the fact these studios and companies are so against that way of thinking. This is obviously how echo chambers are created, and I firmly believe if something is made with only one political view in mind, well, that's how you end up with the slop of today. But like I said, if Arrowhead is smart, which I like to think they are, they will address this head-on instead of allowing it to fester like an open wound. Helldivers CM had more to say to another user who said this, did they ban people from their Discord for suggesting they add LGBT colored capes? Helldivers CM then said, no, we only ban the bigots, transphobes, homophobes, racists, etc. are not welcome in our community. We had to restrict the topics in the Helldivers 2 general chats for a while because it was triggering massive waves of hate speech which our staff was struggling with emotionally. The Helldivers CM had other tweets compiled where she was expressing having problems with concepts like casual and hardcore being tied to video games. When she community manages a video game franchise that is pretty much held together by those very concepts. Other tweets have of hers were resurfaced and compiled by Grums as well, like her doing the usual white savior rhetoric, where white people must shut up and listen when black people are speaking, and things like that. She also expresses that she's tired of seeing parent-child relationships in video games. Stuff like The Last of Us with Joel and Ellie is a good example of this. She says she doesn't like this trope not because of its dynamic, but because it's male-centric, and would instead like to see the same concept but with women only, which is just a mental gymnastics way of saying that Helldivers CM doesn't like seeing men in leading roles within media, and would prefer to see more women instead because the concept of a parent-child dynamic is fine to her as long as it's a woman leading the child and not a man. Which is, well, I mean that's obviously a pretty feminist-like mentality to have, but it doesn't surprise me sadly. Although what this whole exposure has done will likely cause Arrowhead to lose money in the long run, and they could see many players who catch wind of this abandoning the game outright in defiance. This is why I always say you need to keep your real-world politics out of video games, and the more prevalent social media has become, the worse everything surrounding it has as well. It's sort of like how before social media existed, people looked at Hollywood actors as these icons, gods even. But once social media happened, you quickly started to realize that a lot of these Hollywood actors are actually dumbasses in real life and don't know what they're talking about. Look at Mark Ruffalo, for example. He's a decent enough actor, but the more he opens his mouth on things, the less I want to see anything he's attached to. Before, you would just enjoy stuff because you didn't know every political belief or intention of the people involved, and I think losing that mystique and secrecy has led to where we are now. For example, I love From Software's games like Elden Ring, Dark Souls, and so on. I think it would be in From Software's best interest to never have their employees or whoever else to express their political leanings or anything in the real world. Because whatever they say, whether it's pro-liberal or anti-liberal, conservative and so on, it will just simply divide people. And all you end up doing is making a situation where whatever you're selling or making has to now be stained with this otherwise easily avoidable problem. We don't need to know the politics within the developers' heads because that's not important. Just make fun games that don't divide people and you'll make tons of money like Helldivers has. The game has sold over 8 million copies so far, and the current stance of that studio up until now anyway was rock solid. They rejected any demand for real-world symbolism in their games and just told people to go enjoy the game for what it is and play together. And it's like I explained in previous videos, by adding real-world symbolism, you'll just ruin your gaming community. If Helldivers allowed real-world flags as capes, you already know the nuclear toxic sludge that would emerge from the in-game fighting. One player has a flag on their back of a certain country, another player has a problem with it, and boom, congrats, you now got players just murking each other over and over again and the game's fun is ruined. I guarantee you, because of Helldivers 2's rejection of real-world symbols in politics, that there has been thousands of instances where players who would never associate with one another have played together. Somewhere right now in the Helldivers 2 universe, there is a super Trump conservative guy playing with a trans person, and neither of them have any idea of what the other person thinks. And I think that's kind of great, because it just brings people together and they leave all that other stuff at the doorstep. But what this Helldivers CM has done now, she's basically opened the gates to oblivion itself within Tamriel, and she has created a problem that will not go over well with the community at all. Admitting that Helldivers 2 was always woke is a millions of dollars worth of damaging thing to say. And if Arrowhead is smart, they will rectify that statement and what their CM said immediately. Unfortunately, this problem is not unique to Arrowhead, as CMs across the board are almost universally always activists at hearts themselves. This is also why when it comes to layoffs at companies, positions like social media workers or community managers are always in the line of fire because they're not really game developers themselves. They're usually just there as a connection between the player base and the developers. Grums, who need I remind you was responsible for creating World of Warcraft and producing games like Diablo and StarCraft, spoke on the importance of the community manager role. And this is what he had to say, and I quote, "What do community managers, CMs, do and why they actually matter? It's simple. A community manager sits at the boundary of the dev team and gamers, and thus holds the most power in how a games community is shaped and policed, a DEI authoritarian activist dream." I get asked this question a lot, as we have uncovered time and again that community managers are majority DEI supporters. While the role varies from company to company and often consists of teams at larger ones, here are some of their tasks. Directly manage and post to the company and game's social media accounts, X, Facebook, Meta, Instagram, etc. Lead or assist in the creation of user guidelines for community behavior and acceptable speech policies. Police the community. Enact or direct forum, Discord bans, warnings, and take down posts or threads which violate policies. Post to social media to help marketing promote the game and respond to users on social media. Monitor community and gaming trends, noting important reactions to the game, including any design issues reported, and filter, summarize, and report these to the development items themselves. This is why activists are attracted to community manager roles. It is a great source of power to affect change. You get to decide who talks and who doesn't and why. You get to police your community and ban who you wish. You can remove threads and discussions with very little oversight. You get to control the information, both the message of the company to the public, but more importantly, what the devs think about the community. The last part is crucial. Devs don't have time to sit reading social media or hang out in Discord with customers. They rely on reports by the community manager for what is happening and what issues they need to pay attention to. For example, if gamers are upset that there is political pandering or wokeness in the game, the activist community manager could leave this out of their report, or claim it's just a handful of trolls and bigots. I hope this explains why it matters that companies carefully review who they are putting into these positions of very great influence, end quote. And Grums, of course, having worked on these massive Blizzard games, would know this since the community managers, or CMs, would relay the relevant information back to the development studio. This is a big reason as to how certain changes come to a video game too. Players could be complaining, like in say Helldivers, and go, oh, we don't like how this gun is underpowered, or this stratagem is pretty useless, and the devs could obviously see in their analytical reporting that players are not choosing to use those items as often, but they might not know the exact reason as to why that is. So the community manager obviously compiles the relevant info and goes, hey, people aren't really liking the flamethrower as much. Or maybe a certain pistol doesn't do enough damage per bullet, whatever it is, and this allows the devs to go, okay, based on the CM's feedback, we now know what to prioritize and update thanks to their work. And like Grum said, unfortunately, these positions are pretty much overrun by activist weirdos aplenty because being a CM is akin to having absolute power over the conversation of a certain video game or franchise, and in today's world, that gives a CM more power than ever before. It essentially gives the CM the power to dictate what is considered right or wrong think without the input of the devs or higher-ups. This means in a sense, the way a community can, well, for lack of a better word, communicate is based on the opinions and worldview of the CM. Of course, this means you'd want someone who isn't biased when it comes to these things, but of course the reality is that pretty much all CMs are about as biased as you get. Grums and I chat from time to time in the DM, so whenever he gets exclusives, I want to relay that information in a sense so people know. In a way, you could honestly look at what I'm doing as to what a community manager does, but unlike the Helldivers CM, I'm not going to omit any information from the conversation, whether it's good or bad. I'm just telling you straight up what the hell is happening and then letting you decide for yourselves. Anyway, Grum spoke to an ex-community manager, which he confirmed their employment at whichever game franchise they worked on, and according to this ex-CM, they said that there are Discord servers completely infested with the CMs of many games and franchises all talking amongst themselves. And within these Discord servers, the CMs of various games and such would coordinate with one another when it comes to their politics and what they want to see or push within the communities that they police. Apparently, this particular Discord server was officially labeled an industry server, so everyone inside was vetted and verified to be working in the industry and so on. And the actual Discord server was moderated by Discord staff themselves. According to this ex-CM, the server was rampant with woke pro-diversity, equity, and inclusion rhetoric, and that the politics within these servers was very liberal-leaning, and the majority of the Discord's beliefs and stances were determined by a very small minority of community managers. So like pretty much every other industry, the wants of a vocal few dictate what the many do. Whether it's pushing ESG into industries or wokeness by higher-ups like a Disney, for example, this is just the same annoyingly on-brand situation time and again. Apparently, the vocal minority that controlled everything these CMs did or believed were rabid about these things like inclusivity and diversity. They would also silence other CMs if they showed any patterns of wrongthink, and would use intimidation tactics to scare and force other CMs into compliance with their ideological beliefs. If these CMs didn't bend the knee, they would have their opinions brought to their respective human resources departments. Which then, of course, if those HR people also think like these vocal CMs do, well, those who didn't agree with everything to a T were excommunicated. Of course, being silent is akin to being complicit, and you would be labeled a bigot if you didn't show your support whenever someone was pushing back. Which is crazy, but sadly nothing new when it comes to the inner politics of any given company these days. According to this ex-CM, this push by these vocal minority CMs was designed to flush every community across multiple video game franchises and beyond to ban or silence anyone who didn't agree with them. So if you've been watching my videos for a while now, you know of the many video game franchises and CEOs who've said bluntly that they are trying to remove wrongthink and players they deem bigots from the industry in general. And of course they want to replace said spaces with new audiences that don't have wrongthink. This of course can't work per se, because you can't just magically find a new audience that will fit your niche and you're likely stuck with whoever is there already. But their solution to this is to take anyone they deemed bigoted and then force them into having rightthink, and for those who refuse to kneel are just thrown away. So when they say they want to change the industry, it's not just the CEOs or developers or public figureheads anymore. It's even the people who are given essentially unmitigated access to the communities of games you likely play and enjoy as well. Apparently this Discord channel has largely been disbanded and is splintered off into other forms as of now. So those vocal minority who are hellbent on everything could be chatting and cooking their schemes on their own Discord server, WhatsApp, Twitter DMs, whatever else. Essentially, these sorts of situations are not just one and done, but they are spread across everything and happening all the time. But the ultimate goal of these political rewiring of the brain, if you will, is to force community managers into compliance through intimidation and fear of job loss or blacklisting. And you must, under any circumstances, push DEI and wokeness even if it means killing your community in general. Of course, this sort of rhetoric and ideology has costed millions in sales, and since these CMs work mostly completely independent and are able to create their own reports, likely many of these devs and studios don't know that it's their own CMs that are tanking their own games and public image. A great example of a more recent CM that is getting the spotlight is the South of Midnight CM, who goes by Pikacholita, who openly has stated in the past that they hate gamers. And they also hate white and Asian players especially, and they just retweet DEI-centric posts on Compulsion Games' official Twitter page instead of, actually doing real work. Of course, this then brought the attention to another CM, this time for Amazon Prime's Fallout series, whose name is Liana Rupert. She used to work for Game Informer, and then she worked at Bungie until she was laid off from Bungie when they laid off around 100 or so people in 2023. Anyway, don't harass this person, let's just observe them and what they do, but they're a textbook example of what a company looks for in a CM. Liana has been revealed to be yet another white savior complex individual working in the industry who believes it's impossible to be racist towards white people, the same way Alyssa Mercanti of Kotaku has and others like them. Liana has also said things like, fundamentally, people of color can't be racist against white people, they can't have bias, but racism is systematic, and in the US, the system benefits the white community and has been since we established ourselves at the start of our country's history. She also says, sounds about white, and, cause he's a mouthy little white boy that knows how to string big words together to sound real smart. Again, need I remind you that everything she said here is racist, whether she attempts to say it isn't. If you replace the word white with black, it's the same level of bad. Imagine calling someone a mouthy little black boy that knows how to string big words together to sound real smart. Yeah, that would be pretty racist, but that's what she said here, just with white instead. You might also be wondering, why did these CMs always have previous places they used to be CMs at? Why did they keep moving? Liana, for example, has been a CM in multiple places in a span of a few short years. It's mostly because when it comes to budget cuts and layoffs, their job is the first thing to go. Mostly because it's not deemed as important as other jobs, and for good reason. CMs are generally just chronically online individuals. And their job is pretty much just copy and paste and writing reports, which is fine, but I can see why they're on the chopping block when it comes to cuts. Because these companies obviously can find another CM in the future, probably for less anyway, since the market for a job like that is probably highly saturated to begin with. Case in point, I could never be a CM because I don't subscribe to their crazy shenanigans, but if Compulsion Games CM is anything to go by, you just have to retweet stuff that has nothing to do with you and then collect a paycheck, I guess. Very demanding work indeed. Their index finger must hurt from clicking a few times a day at best. But it gets fishy because this Liana Rupert then attempted to create this narrative that she was being sent emails that were highly offensive and racist towards her. Here's the email in question she provided that was sent to her, which I obviously had to heavily censor because of YouTube. It's basically someone allegedly saying she should be assaulted, and they keep spewing the N-word even though Liana is a white woman already. This doesn't make any sense. Liana said, just a normal one, used to messages like this, but a lot of people getting similar ones aren't. Thanks for all the love from friends and former co-workers, appreciate you more than you know. But people quickly pointed out that this email doesn't make any sense if you have half a functioning brain. Mostly because the email that allegedly sent this has the N-word in full within its email username, and it's apparently from a gmail.com account. Yet if you look it up, it says this: Gmail's policy does not allow the creation of usernames that are considered offensive. When signing up for a Google account or Gmail, if a username is deemed inappropriate or violates their guidelines, you will see a message stating username not allowed. This includes usernames that are abusive or could be interpreted as spam. Additionally, certain reserved aliases like abuse and postmaster cannot be used as usernames. For more details, you can refer to Google's spam and abuse policy. So based on Gmail's own policies, it's impossible to have an email that's associated with their service that contains a racial slur. So what the hell's going on? How did Liana Rupert get sent an email from someone whose name is a racial slur at gmail.com of all things? The obvious answer is she didn't, and she's lying and ousted herself in the very same message she sent to Virtue Signal. She would have at least picked a normal sounding Gmail username like, I don't know, I love toasters95 at gmail.com or something. Whatever, it doesn't matter. As long as it was something at least not blatantly offensive like this, like come on dude, N-word at gmail.com, are you being serious? But she went hard on the virtue signaling and created something that actually can't exist based on the information she's provided. The only likely scenario here is she used another website, such as a personal website of her own, which she has by the way, lianarupert.com, and she likely went on her own website, contacted herself, and made the racist email to send herself a message saying all of these things. That's the only logical explanation for that message existing. I'm not outright accusing her of that, of course, but I'm just saying that it's the only scenario where that could actually exist. Because otherwise, the existence of N-word whatever at gmail.com, it just can't exist. It simply can't. There is no way an email like that can be made within that platform. You can mental gymnastics all over it and do somersaults in your brain. It just can't exist within the confines of the narrative that she's attempting to state. The only logical answer here is she made it herself and opposed to herself through her own website, or maybe through Amazon Prime's website. But here, look, I can even go on her own website and you scroll down and you can contact her right here. So I'll just name myself blah 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 because it doesn't matter. My email is some nonsense which I never even created on any website whatsoever or prior to this. My phone number is just going to be random numbers with no area code or anything. I literally just slapped my keyboard and there you go, some numbers. And here you are. I can write whatever I want on her website. I'll even let her know that I'm sending it just to prove a point here, and I can send it away into her inbox. And it automatically accepts the email and sends it to her without verifying that anything I just sent was from any official source. The phone number doesn't make any sense, my name is obviously not blah blah blah, and that email is not registered. I just wrote it right there in front of you. So you can see how easy it would be for her to falsify these claims and then send herself a racist message of her own making. Because again, no matter how many times I need to repeat it, you cannot use a racist username when it comes to gmail.com or any other, even Hotmail or whatever else, you can't. Anyone who fell for this obvious bait is just doing it without realizing how easy it is to fake something like this. You can't be this stupid, dude. Come on now. She falsified it. She even shows in her post that the supposed message was sent via a contacts form. So that means it came from a message sent to her personal website. So she literally did exactly what I just did in front of you and claimed it was harassment. Look into your souls, my friends. You know it to be true. This is fake news at its finest. Just a quick edit here. This is future ENDYMION while I'm editing this, so if I sound a little different, I apologize. I do want to say that I did speak to Liana Rupert in the DMs and she explained herself further to me, and I think we had a pretty candid conversation, all things considered. I explained to her why this whole movement is happening and that the people involved with it, like yourselves, are not bad people. But I also told her that the consumers at large are tired of being belittled and that her side of the aisle, as in the game industry, needs to stop attacking the consumer base and labeling them bigots. I did tell her I would still speak on this in my video, which sure, she may not like that, but I do think what happened still feels shady to a degree. Obviously, she will never admit to it, but I did tell her I didn't like how her and the people around her attempted to use this email message as a way to blanket everyone on my side of the aisle as being bad or something. We are not bad people, me, Grums, whoever else. I'm sure there's bad apples regardless of any side of any conversation. But we need to be able to speak about these things out loud, and I also do think that even though I had a pretty civil conversation with her, I still don't believe her omission 100%. I just think the parameters surrounding how the specific hateful email she decided to share was too easily modifiable for it to be taken as legitimate in any way. I could do the same thing for myself and claim someone hates me and write an email and send it as proof, so you may disagree with that, but I don't take everything anyone says as gospel. You have to question it no matter what. And in my gut anyway, what she presented, it didn't feel genuine. I don't think she should be attacked, mind you, and while I've gotten plenty of harassment from Twitter for this stance from her side, I do stand by it. Which is fine, and I don't need apologies or anyone singing me kumbaya in order to make me feel better. I'll be okay. But doing what I do here, it's going to be some dicey moments where you're making this sort of stuff, and don't worry, I got plenty of thick skin. So while her side has harassed me aplenty already, I don't want that to happen to her. We gotta do better, and I just want this part of the video to be a confirmation that I don't think Liana Rupert is a bad person. In fact, after speaking to her and listening to her, if anything, I honestly felt a sense of sadness for her. She seems like someone who's been through a lot. Of course, I wouldn't pry too deep because I don't know her well enough, but I'm at least attempting to build some sort of a path between both sides so that we can understand that we are not all bigots or monsters as they claim us to be. And I hope this edit that I've placed here shows you that not all community managers are as mean or as evil as, say, the compulsion one who just straight up hates people who don't look like them. Liana seems like a generally good person, and I told her to use that situation that we're in as a lesson to apply it for the Fallout Amazon Prime community. And maybe just keep politics and virtue signaling out of it to hopefully bring people together instead of driving them apart. Will she do that? I don't know. I don't control her or anyone else, but this is me saying that don't harass her or anything. I think she just made a stupid mistake presenting that very easily modifiable email, and although her side did attack ours, we need to do better or else this is all lost. I'm not admitting defeat or anything, I'm mostly just trying to ensure Liana that if she watches this, she can relax. I'm not coming for your job or anything. The fact that you reached out, it means more than most people on your side who usually just block or protect their tweets. So I guess Liana Rupert is not one of the crazy ones at least. Sure, she made some mistakes, but she's not Compulsion Games community manager, that's for sure. That lady is crazy, dude. Anyway, back to the original video, thank you. We also have people like this guy named Jeff Zaldley, who is apparently a games journalist at places like The Gamer and others. Again, don't harass him or anything. But I do just want to point out that he did tell Grums to self-delete himself on Twitter, which is technically against the terms of service when it comes to, well, any social media platform, really. So The Gamer apparently employs people who advocate for self-harm, so that's neat that we all know this too. Oh yeah, I almost forgot about that DDoS. So apparently Compulsion Games got DDoSed and their site went down, yet nobody has any proof of this ever happening. And when it was claimed, multiple people, including me and Grums, checked and we both confirmed to each other that the site was fine, so there was no DDoS attack whatsoever. Again, they're falsifying events. Of course, people like Khalif Adams, who does that podcast Spawn on Me, which I talked about in a previous video, was asked when he said Grums and his followers caused a DDoS that never actually happened. To which a user asked, you got any receipts to share because their website seems fine and is the site down searches don't show any history of interruptions. Nor is there any reports on a targeted DDoS attack on the studio's webpage at any media at all. Weird. To which Khalif Adams said, nope, was an assumption due to the targeted harassment we are seeing. Very nice, so we're now just assuming people are doing things they haven't done because we can. Khalif Adams came to this conclusion simply because the voices in his head told him so. Are we really attempting to act like people's thoughts are somehow now evidence when it comes to claims? What's next? Grums or Yellow Flash gave you a wedgie in your dreams and now you're going to claim it was assault? This is where we're at, fellas. This whole Gamergate 2 thing has broken all of these people's brains beyond repair. They have no evidence whatsoever of any actual real harassment or anything, no DDoS attacks with receipts or even mentions of them happening. And we've reached a point where the voices in these people's heads are being used as evidence to push narratives. This is why I keep telling you guys, don't harass these people, because it's way funnier to see themselves harass themselves and then get exposed like this. We are literally doing more to unravel their entire stance and campaign by genuinely just standing there and vibing and playing video games. They want you to send racist stuff. They are begging for any of you to attack them. But don't, because we know that we're better than that. So stay morally above this and let's just observe like the watchers we are and just laugh at it all. Keep letting them self-own themselves like this. If for any other reason, then it's funny to see. But whether it's the Helldiver CM committing financial death, this Khalif guy using the ghost in his head as a moral compass, or Alyssa Mercanti and the other CMs hating on white men for no other reason than they exist, I just want you to know that you're winning, friends, and you literally don't even have to do anything. Just don't buy their stupid games and just laugh to yourselves and enjoy your lives. This is about as close to a flawless victory as it gets. We're like the guys in Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, and the journos are the teens who inadvertently get themselves axed. So thank you for watching and let me know what you think. As always, like, subscribe, and share this video, and thanks to my patrons as well. Have a wonderful day, enjoy your life, and I'll see you in the next one.